Hey, Jeff. Thanks for taking some time to sit down with us today. Could you share a little bit about yourself, about your role at Dish?
Sure. Jeff Fry, VP of Supply Chain. I've been here 2.5 years and I'm responsible for purchasing, planning, and the sourcing functions.
It's a complex industry that you're in. Perhaps you can give us a little bit of a taste of what's important today, how you're navigating through those challenges.
Yeah, well, it is a complex industry for us. For one thing, our business is based on subscriptions. When we're providing our customers with equipment, let's say a retail wireless handset or phone, we're investing more money in their initial engagement with us, and we need to recoup that investment back over time with subscriptions from them. So the same is true of satellite TV, retail wireless handsets. And then you can even take a step farther back into the capital equipment investments we have to make to create the infrastructure that allows us to communicate with those devices, the satellite TV set-top box and the retail wireless handset. So for us, it's all about how we can pick the right amount of the right customer equipment to buy in order to make sure that we don't have any excess left over afterwards, and we're giving the customer the thing they really need to get our service and stay with us.
You've spent some time, outside this industry, and I'm sure a lot of that experience provided you with a backdrop of how to navigate some of the challenges that you're facing today. How has your approach been shaped by
Are you saying that I look old and that I don't look like I graduated from college 2.5 years ago? Is that
Not
what
saying
you're
that at all, Jeff.
Okay, good. Just checking. Yeah, I've worked in a number of different industries. My career spans a couple of decades, and it's been split largely between electronic distribution and electronic manufacturing. And in fact, the job before this, I was actually managing a manufacturing plant. What I try to bring to this job is a lot of the disciplines that you see in manufacturing organizations and apply them to an industry that perhaps has grown up with fewer disciplines. And so I'm looking to incorporate a lot of things like lean, inventory management, Six Sigma quality concepts to service industries, and make sure that we can execute at a high-performing level, compared not relative to other service companies, but to the best of all companies, including manufacturing companies.
I would imagine that this business is very investment heavy. A lot of promotional activity. You have a large subscriber base that obviously you just talked about needing to maintain and grow. What are the key barriers to scaling businesses at Dish?
Yeah, it's cash, really. Cash is king in this business. There's so much of an upfront investment involved from the capital equipment purchased, but really the main focus for us, and certainly with '09, is the spend on the equipment we give to our customers. Willie Sutton was a bank robber famous for. He was asked, why do you rob banks? And he's like, because that's where the money is. I stay really close to our spend reporting, and I adjust both my team and my focus towards where we're spending the money. And in the coming years, the main source of our supplier spend and our investment is going to be in the retail wireless space and the retail wireless handsets. So what we need to do there is make sure that we have as short a cash-to-cash cycle as we can possibly have with the retail wireless handsets. And we need to be thinking about a lot of things, because cell phones have a short life cycle. You need to keep that in mind. You need to keep in mind the structure of the way we distribute the handsets, which is from a centralized DC to regional distributors to the thousands of stores we have out there, the Boost Mobile stores that are selling the retail wireless handsets. And we need to make sure that at every point in time that inventory is flowing. Any slow-moving inventory, whether it's in our warehouse and not monetized in a sale to the stores, or whether it's even out at the stores, creates a cash creates a cash drain, because even at the stores we'll need to create a promotional vehicle to help them get rid of their excess inventory so they can buy more of the other newer phones that we want to give them. So we have to be looking at every node in the supply chain, every level of the supply chain, and make sure that the inventory is flowing and the cash is turning into a monetized subscription with our cell phone service as quickly as possible. We need people to go from, those phones to go from the supplier to a Boost Mobile subscriber as quickly as possible.
I'd like to shift gears a little bit. Let's talk a little bit about transformation. How you've approached that journey, right? So from selection of a vendor, what's the criteria that you looked at, and is data really truly the hardest part?
Yeah, it's funny that you mentioned data. I'll come to that next, but I'll talk about the vendor selection process first. So normally vendor selection is challenging, especially when you're dealing with different business units that operate normally quite separately, which is true here at Dish. Also, when you're dealing with IBP and S&OP functionality, that's inherently a cross-functional activity. So in our case, to pick the right tool, we had to make sure that the different business units were all aligned around one tool. What I tell the different business units all the time is, we're not going to buy 2 dishwashers. And the explanation for that is, in your house, if your dishwasher is given out or maybe no longer working, and do you and your wife go shopping separately for dishwashers and buy 2 different dishwashers and put them both in your kitchen? Or do you have one dishwasher? Everyone has one dishwasher. We talk about it. We agree on one, and we have one dishwasher in our kitchen. And we did have, in fact, 2 different vendor selection efforts going on that were not aligned. So we combined them into one. We sat down and had everyone look at all of the different choices in front of us from the 2 separate teams. We then also made sure that each of the different functions within the different business units were also comfortable for them to adopt the output of a tool that would be used for IBP and S&OP. There are a lot of players involved, and we need to know that a lot of people are going to be comfortable with how the tool works. So with 09, fortunately, there wasn't disagreement. In the end, there was complete alignment on 09 as the tool to select. And that also helped me get the approvals that I needed from our executive team, which was a bit of a task in and of itself. Related to data, Dish has an interesting culture around data, and I would describe it as a lack of respect for data. Here's how the data is at Dish, to a certain extent now, but certainly when I got here. The data is, so there's some PDFs over there, there's a spreadsheet that we're using here, some of it's on that guy's hard drive, and some of it, oh, they quit. Yeah, we don't have that data anymore. So the data was a bit of a challenge here. Trying to create a single source of truth was our greatest challenge at the beginning of this project. Trying to align information from our ERP system, from our 3PL, from our distributors and dealers, and putting it all in a common platform that we could then use to feed into 09 and have that single source of truth in 09 was a very significant part of our for the first part of our implementation, and we knew we weren't going to get the results out of it that we needed if we didn't go through that exercise. And it actually enforced a lot of disciplines around the data that had not existed before. As long as the data is distributed on different spreadsheets with no real common use, you get people treating data differently, treating data casually, and you don't have data that you can rely on and trust. So the process of putting it all into one tool and using that tool as a single source of truth created disciplines around the data that have been very helpful to us as a business so that we can have a really clear view of what's going on in our supply chain.
Those comments really hearken to the idea of change management, changing the way you're managing your data. Change management is also a lot about process transformation. Mm-hmm. How have you approached that? What are some lessons you've learned along the way? And how do you see that informing or changing, your decision-making moving forward?
Again, Dish had a culture of decentralization and doing different things differently, even sometimes within the same business unit, doing things differently depending on the subset of people. And so, tools can drive commonality of process. Also, the process of implementing tools drives thoughtfulness around what the process should be and driving folks towards the more thoughtful, optimal process for execution. So we've used the implementation process and the tool itself to compare notes across the different business units, select the best practices from each business unit, and then build them into the process that we use to manage the tool and create the output from the tool. So for us, it was a great opportunity to exchange ideas within the company, add some discipline to the process, and come out with an optimal and efficient process that allows us to use the tool effectively and then be able to trust and rely on the output from the tool.
What's it been like working with '09 as a partner in that transformation process?
Yeah, '09's been good. Dish is a company we have a lot of people who've been here a long time, as well as a lot of new people now. And when you're doing transformation, you need to respect the existing paradigm within a company. If you try to introduce a paradigm that is radically different and you don't bother to learn what that paradigm is, you will fail in your transformation. And I've done a lot of transformations over the years, impacting tools, organizations, locations, warehouses. And the one thing that I've learned is you have to be meeting people halfway. And so what '09 did is they really did take the time to learn the way we were doing the business, to get with the subject matter experts and be bouncing ideas off of them. And I will say there's another point, which is that if all you do is spend a lot of money on a tool and then just design the same processes and practices you had before, you've missed a huge opportunity. And so you need that outside perspective to be brought in to help transform the organization as well. Meeting those people who've been here a long time, who have a certain historic paradigm or view of the world, meeting them halfway is necessary to get the transformation. And '09 did a really good job of both understanding where Dish folks were coming from, Boost Mobile folks were coming from, but also proposing the new ideas. Partly the tool itself has best practices in the industry built into it and incorporated into it. So your standard approach sort of introduces people who've been doing things more informally and casually on spreadsheets into here's kind of some best practices that are out there, either in this industry or other industries. And you can say, look at that before you decide how you want to do it. So the '09 team did a really good job of taking the time to both learn what our current business was, proposing the new and different ideas, perhaps industry best practices, and then adjusting them enough that it felt familiar to the people at Dish. And that's important because if it doesn't feel familiar, it will get rejected, it won't get adopted. And the adoption that we have today is based on the fact that the tool and '09's team through their help, have made it feel familiar and useful and usable to us.
Let's take a moment and think about the future, just like a lens into what's next. Mm-hmm. We're clearly working on this transformation now. We've completed a number of phases of that together. But what do you see in the future?
Yeah. For me, it's more about expanding what we've started. We need to be managing the supply chain end to end, all the way from the suppliers and working with them on their forecasts. In the case of the retail wireless handset suppliers, we have a collaborative forecasting process with each of them, each of the major ones. And we need to find out how we can use the tool more effectively with the suppliers, which we are starting to do now, and also use the tool more effectively all the way down through the end of the supply chain, which is, in our case, the retail stores. And we have either dealers that have a Boost Mobile sign on the front, or national retailers, and we deal with the main ones who are also common household names. And how we can utilize both the ability to integrate data from them into the tool, be providing it as quickly as possible and as close to real time as is practical back to our suppliers, and linking all the parts of that supply chain end to end so that they're reacting to each other as quickly as possible, making that cash to cash cycle at each and every level of the supply chain as short, as responsive, and as agile as possible.
It's fantastic. Jeff, thanks so much for spending the time today. It's been a pleasure. Really enjoyed the conversation.
Thank you. It's been a pleasure.